have some inspirational quotes, and I have lots of wonderful artwork provided from my daughter. There is, however, one wall hanging that always seems to catch attention of anyone who comes into my office. It's a poster now that I've had for over 20 years. It was displayed way back in the day in my college dorm room, but it's traveled with me wherever I've went, and it's always been put up in my office. It's this, a black and white photo and a picture of Bourbon Street. Now, many people don't ask a lot of questions about this picture. They really only ask one. They point at it and they say, why is that here? Why would a pastor have a picture of one of the most unsavory places that our country knows? I mean, come on. This is a place of sin, of drunkenness, of debauchery. This is where Mardi Gras happens. While all this is most certainly true, to me, this street, though, and this city also represent something more. See, over my life, the city of New Orleans has been a unique reflection of my faith life and my walk with Jesus, whether for good or for bad. My first visit to New Orleans happened when I went there for a national youth gathering. But I wasn't going as a leader yet. I wasn't a DCE. This was simply as a youth. But unfortunately, my experience as a youth was not a good one. The problem wasn't my group. The problem wasn't my wonderful group leaders or the gathering itself. The problem was me. Instead of focusing on all the good the youth gathering had to offer, I kind of used it as my own personal dating service and collected phone numbers throughout the week. I left New Orleans after that week of not sleeping much and getting in lots of trouble, realizing that I had wasted an incredible opportunity to grow my relationship with Christ. Thankfully, though, God is graceful. And many times in life, we are given a second chance. Now, for me, that came as a DCE, getting to bring youth to that same city for that same event, the National Youth Gathering. Now, those experiences, in contrast, were amazing. I got to take part in meaningful servant events. I got to help kids see how God's grace impacts their lives. I got to enjoy that worship with 20,000 other people. And I got to see and feel that amazing presence of God in my life as well. See, to me, this poster represents much more than Bourbon Street. It represents grace. It represents second chances. It's that reminder to me that even in an ungracious place like New Orleans that has a sinful street like Bourbon Street, there is still forgiveness. God's grace still exists even there. Now, our Bible story for today doesn't involve a street with bourbon in the title. But in so many ways, to the Jewish people, this place would have been just as unsavory. It's a country called the Gerasenes. Now, on a map, it's located about 35 miles southwest of the Sea of Galilee. So what makes this place a place that people would want to avoid so much? Well, simply, let us count the many ways. First, this is a foreign land. The Jewish people do not live there. It's filled with people outside of God's original covenant. This is a place where the Gentiles live, outsiders. And it's important to understand to us in this context, this means a lot more than simply crossing a border to another country. The traditions and practices of these Gentiles are very different when what the Jewish people would even consider allowable. One simple example, well, in this area, there's people who farm with pigs. Now, pigs for the Jewish people are a big problem. They're unclean animals. Jewish people did not believe in the consumption or having any association. They could not even touch a pig. See, this would make them unclean. It would break their religious laws. This was a big deal. Now, secondly, even some of those cultural things, there is the actual characteristics of this specific region Jesus goes to. Because right away in the text, we see there's the mention of tombs. This is a first century graveyard. Now, if a Jewish person were to come in contact with someone who was dead, that would also make them unclean. This would break their religious laws. Not to mention, even today, a graveyard isn't really a place that most of us seek to congregate or to have a picnic. Maybe you'll go to visit a loved one and spend some time, but very rarely is that a place of gathering. So this is not a place that people want it to be. Finally, the last reason you wouldn't want to step foot in this specific area is the presence of a demon-possessed man. See, this man has been calling the graveyard his home. He regularly walks around and cries out in a loud voice. Now, if the demons and the yelling weren't off-putting enough, this man doesn't wear any clothes, and the demons cause him to harm himself. And the demons also give this man incredible physical strength. The text says that there's no chains, nothing can bind this man. So this is the setting of our story today, which leads me to ask a very big question. What in the world is Jesus and his disciples doing in this area? See, this story in Scripture, the context is also very important. See, Jesus has just calmed this storm on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus showed his divine power by speaking the words and calming the waves with just his voice. See, now in this story, in the healing of the man, what we're going to see is Jesus' power in a different way. We're going to see it revealed differently. And right from the beginning, I believe we need to get this clear. This story is just about Jesus. See, the text begins in Mark 5. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. Again, here's our setting, this most inhospitable and ungracious place. But you notice the word that it starts. It uses the word they. So Jesus had just been with his disciples in the boat, so we can conjecture that this is again Jesus with his disciples. This is right after Jesus said, "Be still," and the waves were still. However, after the word they in this story, that's the last we will hear of the disciples. No more will we even see them mentioned. This story is about Jesus. Because just imagine, if the disciples had been cowering in fear in a boat, these guys were fishermen in a storm. I can't imagine how they'd respond with a demon-possessed man in a graveyard near a hillside with thousands of pigs. See, whether they are cowering, whether they are standing off to the side, the disciples aren't the main characters in this story. So we're going to leave them alone. We're going to push them off to the side. So who we're left with is Jesus and this demon-possessed man. Now, the challenge with this man is that the demon possession is so total, it's difficult to tell where the man ends and where the demons begin. See, throughout the conversations we see in the text, it seems to go back and forth, man and demon. Jesus, however, is the one who's most powerful, and he's able to divide the two. As Jesus calmed the storms with his words, Jesus now speaks again. "Come out of this man, you unclean spirit." Jesus then asks this, "What is your name?" To this, it's clearly the demons who respond. "Legion," they say, "for we are many." Now here I'm curious, what does legion mean? Well, at this time, the legion represented the largest military unit in the Roman army. It could contain as many to 4,000 to 6,000 soldiers. So this is a legion of demons. Regardless of the number, this is a powerful group. The demons, though, quickly realize the power of the person in front of them. See, while they are numerous, while they have wreaked havoc in this man's life, they know that the person in front of them is far more powerful than them. So what do? They beg. The demons beg for Jesus not to send them out of the area, not to have them leave the country. They suggest that instead they just be cast into the herd of pigs on the hillside. So Jesus gives them permission. He's in charge. So the demons enter the pigs and they rush down into the sea. So the demons, the pigs, they also are no longer part of this story. We set them aside as well. And once again, we are left with Jesus and this man who is now no longer demon-possessed. Now the word of what happens begins to spread. I can only imagine the herdsmen who just watch their whole livelihood of these pigs drown in the ocean. They go and they start telling everyone they see. The people from the city hear about this, and now I imagine this herd of people descending upon this area. Because this probably hasn't been a place that many of these people have been either. Why would they want to venture out to the tombs where the crazy man was? But now they notice that the demon-possessed man is nowhere to be found. He's there, but he's totally changed. He's clothed. He's in his right mind. He's sitting at the feet of Jesus. See, the townspeople can't even comprehend what they are seeing. As the disciples had been gripped in fear with the boat during the storm, these townspeople are now gripped in fear after hearing what happened with the pigs and seeing the change in this man. They are now the ones doing the begging. The townspeople beg Jesus to leave. They are afraid. They can't imagine what else Jesus could do. So Jesus does decide to leave. But there's still one more person who's left begging. See, the man who had been healed, he also wants to leave, but he wants to leave to be with Jesus. He wishes to follow him just like his disciples are. But again, in this story, we were reminded that this story is about Jesus. He is the one in control. And Jesus will not bring this man with him. As Jesus boards the boat once again, he has some very specific instructions for the man. He tells him, go home, go to your friends, and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. See, this ends Jesus' time in the land of the Gerasenes. This is the only event that is recorded that happened. This one seemingly strange and mysterious interaction with Jesus casting demons and healing this one troubled man. I would argue, however, the part of this story that we don't get the full details to is just as important as the healing itself. See, as Jesus had calmed the storm on the waves and calmed the waves in the Sea of Galilee, Jesus was now going to create waves of his own. Jesus was beginning a wave of grace. See, while Jesus had only healed one man, he encouraged this man to go and tell others. See, so many times in the scriptures, Jesus would heal someone and say, hey, don't tell anyone. This man, he specifically says, you go tell other people. See, as Pastor Burnout spoke last Sunday, the face of grace is Jesus. However, Jesus allows us to reflect him to others. See, this man would now become a walking testimonial of the power and the grace of Jesus. And this is exactly what this man does, because this is how our text concludes. And the man went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. So my question here is, what is the Decapolis? Well, the Decapolis are the 10 ancient Greek cities of that time. These are the areas that are primarily filled with people who are Gentiles who have yet to hear about Jesus. But the demon-possessed man would be the one now proclaiming the grace of Jesus in all of these places. See, our struggle even today is we sometimes limit the amount of good that can come out of an unsavory place. Whether that place be Bourbon Street or the Strip on Vegas or a dark alley in North Minneapolis or even this land looking in the scriptures of the Gerasenes. The truth is there is no place where God's grace can't take root. See, this story is one of those that where it'd be easy to get distracted by all the other things, get distracted by the pigs or the legion of demons or this troubled setting. But when you push all that aside, the picture becomes much more clear of what it's all about. This is a story about Jesus and the grace that he gives. And this grace took root in this naked, demon-possessed graveyard resident. That is how Jesus decided to show grace in this story. And Jesus would begin this wave of grace through this man that would sweep over this entire region and these 10 cities. because we need to remember one final time. This story is about Jesus and how his grace can work even in the most ungracious places. Amen.